Police on Wednesday arrested a man accused of opening fire at a medical center in the U.S. city of Atlanta. One person was killed in the shooting and 4 others were wounded, all of them women. The suspect has been identified as Deion Patterson, a 24-year-old former US Coast Guardsman. Police said he arrived at the Northside Medical Facility around 12:30 p.m. and opened fire with a pistol before fleeing on foot. He then headed to a nearby gas station where he hijacked a pickup truck to escape. He was spotted several hours after the shooting by an undercover officer and was taken into custody without incident. The mayor of Atlanta, Andre Dickens, called it a successful end to a traumatic day, but decried what he called a national epidemic of gun violence.
So I hope that the city, the region, rests easy, that he's in custody, but I also hope that we stay vigilant to continue to look at a future where individuals that shouldn't have a gun in possession won't have one, and also that individuals will be brought to justice, and also that we deal with these things that are mental health or easy access to guns.
Authorities added the motive of the shooting and whether the suspect knew or targeted any of his victims are now being investigated.
Lawyers for E. Jean Carroll in her lawsuit against former President Donald Trump, who she says raped her at a department store decades ago, are expected to soon wrap up their case, perhaps as early as Thursday. Her attorneys have called her friends to the witness stand, a therapist, and 2 women who said Trump assaulted them in the past, all to bolster Carroll's claim. But the case will likely weigh heavily on her own testimony. Reporter Jack Queen has been covering the trial for Reuters.
So Ms. Carroll testified for about 3 days, and there were of course moments when she was quite emotional on the stand, but most of those actually came when she was talking about the experience of actually going to court, having her day in court. You get the sense that she really buried this alleged rape for a couple of decades.
The rape claim arose in Carroll's 2019 memoir, What Do We Need Men For?, a modest proposal. Trump has denied the incident occurred and called her allegations a hoax. Under cross-examination, she denied making up her claims to drive publicity for the memoir.
Trump's legal team is obviously taking a pretty kitchen sink approach to discrediting Ms. Carroll's claim. They're focusing a lot on how she doesn't have a specific date for when this occurred. She thinks it might have been 1995 or 1996. And of course, they're also going after why she didn't go to the police, why didn't she immediately report this, why did she wait so long to go public with her claims, which she made in her 2019 memoir. Now, they also claim that this whole thing, that she made up this entire story to gin up press and publicity for her book in 2019 and drive sales of that book. Now, Ms. Carroll says that the book was a dud anyway, but they claim that she made this whole thing up to make money.
Trump's lawyers also zeroed in on the day in question and why she didn't scream during the alleged assault.
She was being repeatedly questioned by Trump's attorney, Joe Tacopina, about why she didn't scream or immediately go to the police after this or take photos of her injuries. And she told Mr. Tacopina that this is why, questions like that are why so few women come forward with their stories of rape, is because they're constantly questioned about why they didn't act a particular way in response to the assault. And at one point she said, growing very emotional and frustrated, "I am telling you, he raped me whether I screamed or not." And that was a very powerful moment as well.
Carroll is seeking unspecified damages for battery and defamation. Eventually, she will need to present to the court an actual dollar amount for damages, though she has said that the trial was more about clearing her name and restoring her reputation. As for Trump, Queen says it remains to be seen what is really at stake for the former president.
It would be pretty remarkable if a jury comes back and says, yes, Mr. Trump raped Ms. Carroll. That would be pretty remarkable. But for him personally and for his political prospects, he's actually been using this case as a fundraising tool, essentially. Throughout the entire trial, his campaign has been sending out emails talking about how this is a hoax, that he's under attack, that Ms. Carroll is a political operative, of course, all allegations that she denies. And so it's conceivable that if the jury does find him liable for raping Ms. Carroll, that could actually be a boon for him in terms of fundraising and so forth.
Because Carroll's case is civil, she must establish her claims by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not. Her claims do not need to meet the tougher criminal standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Trump is not required to appear in court, and Trump's lawyers told the judge they will not be calling any witnesses.
The Federal Reserve on Wednesday raised interest rates by 0.25 percentage point and signaled it may pause further increases, giving officials time to assess the fallout from recent bank failures, wait on the resolution of a political standoff over the U.S. debt ceiling, and monitor the course of inflation.
With today's action, we have raised interest rates by 5 percentage points in a little more than a year. We are seeing the effects of our policy tightening on demand in the most interest rate sensitive sectors of the economy, particularly housing and investment. It will take time, however, for the full effects of monetary restraint to be realized, especially on inflation.
The Fed has now raised rates 10 consecutive times since March 2022, pushing its benchmark overnight interest rate to the 5 to 5.25% range. In an overt shift, the central bank no longer said it anticipates further rates will be needed, only that it will watch incoming data to determine if more hikes may be appropriate. Fed Chair Jerome Powell said the central bank still views inflation as too high. He also pushed back on market expectations of rate cuts this year and said they were quite unlikely to come to pass. Risks around the recent failures of several U.S. banks and a debt limit standoff between Republicans in Congress and Democratic President Joe Biden have added to the Fed's sense of caution about trying to tighten financial conditions further. On the debt ceiling, Powell warned lawmakers to get the job done.
I would just say this: it's essential that the debt ceiling be raised in a timely way so that the U.S. government can pay all of its bills when they're due. A failure to do that would be unprecedented. We'd be in uncharted territory, and the consequences to the U.S. economy would be highly uncertain and could be quite averse. So no one should assume that the Fed can protect the economy from the potential, short and long-term effects of a failure to pay our bills on time.
On Monday, U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said the Treasury's best estimate was that a default on U.S. payment obligations due to insufficient cash could come as early as June 1st, raising alarm bells on the need for urgent action.
Another Alzheimer's treatment could soon hit the market. An experimental drug developed by Eli Lilly slowed cognitive decline by 35% in a closely watched late-stage trial, the company said Wednesday. The medication, called donanemab, which was given monthly through an intravenous infusion, met all goals of the trial combating the brain-wasting disease. The chief science officer for the not-for-profit Alzheimer's Association called the results the strongest phase 3 data for an Alzheimer's treatment to date. Previously approved drugs, including one from Japan's Eisai and Biogen, were shown to be less effective at slowing the progression of the disease. Donanemab did cause brain swelling in some patients, which is a known side effect of drugs of this type, and there were deaths attributed to the condition. One outside researcher referred to this as risks that need to be considered. Lilly says it plans to file for traditional U.S. approval by the end of June, and with regulators from other countries shortly thereafter. It hasn't determined a price for the treatment. Over 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, and the number is projected to rise to nearly 13 million by 2050, according to the Alzheimer's Association. Lilly's stock was up 5% in late morning trading after hitting an all-time high.